everyone, and thank you for tuning in to WCC Waycross Community Connect. And today we have a very special guest, Mrs. Harlen Valentine.
Hey everyone.
Hi Harlen, it's great to have you here with us.
I'm so happy to be here.
All right, so let's get right into it. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, and are you a Waycross native?
I am not a Waycross native. I'm 23 and I moved here 3 years ago from Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. It was a very stark transition, but I'm really happy to be here and contribute to the community in any way possible.
That's great.
Oh, but I can tell you a little bit about myself because you did ask that. I moved here 3 years ago. I worked for the library for 2 years, so I was a county employee. And then I worked for the Journal-Herald for 2 years doing photographic journalism and some writing and social media marketing. And then I transitioned to opening my own store, which is Tracking the Vintage in downtown Waycross. And that opened in October of last year. And I also started a podcast last year called Tracking the Cross, and that was back in March of last year. But yeah, I do a little bit of everything, and I'm so happy to contribute to the community in any way. And yeah, that's a little bit.
All right, well, that's great. Okay, so we heard a little bit about Tracking the Cross, which is your podcast that you started. So can you tell us a little bit more about Tracking the Cross?
Yeah, I'll tell you the origin story.
Okay.
So it started back in March, but it was an idea that Connor is, he still works for the library. He's the manager of the Alma-Bacon County Library now, but both him and I were library clerks originally. And something really traumatic happened to me in the beginning of last year, and I was put on light duty at the library, which, what's light duty at the library? But it was a lot of reading and cleaning, and so I started reading the historical books in the heritage room that the library has, and I was reading, and I was like, oh my God, these stories are so interesting. How does no one know about this? Especially with how big Waycross used to be. And a fun fact, Waycross used to be the biggest city south of Macon. Can you believe that? For 50 years.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, bigger than Brunswick, bigger than Valdosta, all these places. And that was because we were the main route, not only for the railroad, but we were the main route for Route 1 and 84. So this was before I-75 and I-95. But yeah, everyone used to stop in Waycross, and it was really cool. So I started talking with Connor, and we were like, why does no one know about these stories, and how do we give it to the people in a way that's accessible and educational and interesting? And with my background, I actually went to art school for digital art. And so with my background in film and media and photography and audio production, and Connor's interest and being a local native, we kind of comboed. And he was also a writing major. So it was like we comboed our brains, and we were like, we should do a podcast, but we should do more than a podcast and have it be about community development and accessibility and education. And so though we are a podcast, we are more than a podcast, because both of us really care about growing what Waycross has. So that's the origin story. Some of our episodes are really interesting. Our second and third episode, we partnered with the Library of Congress, and it's actually a really sad story, but it's partnered with the jail, the second jail in Blackshear, which is the hanging jail, which is the one. I know you said you haven't been to Blackshear downtown, but the city hall is across the street, and then there's this giant jail that was there from the 1800s.
I think I saw a picture of that on Facebook.
Yeah.
And it was a big uproar about it.
Yeah.
About the name, about it. Yes.
Yeah, and it was originally designed to be a hanging jail because hangings were legal back then. And so it has this huge part, and so people could see, because that was a part of the law back then, is that if it has to be a public execution. But technically no one was ever hung there. But in a sad story, mobs used to go to the jail and take people out and lynch them.
Wow.
And so we partnered with the Library of Congress because we found an article about the NAACP starting after a lynching of a child named Sandy Reeves. And so we found the documents. We contacted the library. It was this huge adventure to figure this out. But we found it. We found the information. And the NAACP was not started because of the death. It just happened the same year. But because it was so big, like they have all the documents. And so it was like this 40-page document, and Connor and I were reading it in the library. I actually have the video of our reactions, and we're just sobbing because we finally brought to justice this child that it didn't need to happen, you know? And he was wrongfully accused. And so the podcast is so much more than just local history. It's about bringing life and respect and representation and a voice to the community that's here. And that's important because no one has done that. But we want to do more. We want to incorporate more, have people tell their voices themselves. And so we do a lot of interview episodes. We actually just did an interview the other day with the guy from the airport, but him telling the direct stories of how the airport grew. And the manager's name is Frank. But anyway, it is super interesting. We do a lot more. On a happier note, we have happier episodes, but we just want to respect the community that's here and bring a voice in a way that is open to everyone. So yes, we do have audio podcasts and videos as well, but our podcast episodes are also posted on YouTube so people can read it. So if people have disabilities and they're hard of hearing or they're deaf, they can still participate in the education. So yeah, that's a little bit about the podcast.
Yeah, that's great. So what platforms are you on? How can they find it?
We're on all platforms. We're on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon podcasts, all of them. You name it, we're on it. It's like a cross stream. And then we're also on YouTube. So if you don't pay for any subscriptions, YouTube is free.
Of course.
Yeah. And it's all under Tracking the X. It's spelled TRACKINGTHEX, but it's pronounced Tracking the Cross. For like the railroad crossing.
You guys also have an Instagram, right?
Yes, we do have an Instagram and we have a Facebook. And our Facebook is awesome because even if we don't do a podcast episode, like a deep dive into something, we still try to post like interesting resources and stuff like that, cool pictures of Waycross. And we're trying to do more than just Waycross. So like our second and third episode was on Blackshear, but we do a little bit of everything and we're trying to expand to all of Southeast Georgia.
I really love that. I know that being in school here in Waycross, I heard about the Pea Patch murders.
Yeah.
And actually, that was how I came across you guys' Facebook. I was reading up on it and everything, and you guys had literally wrote like a story about the Pea Patch murders and did an episode on it. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the Pea Patch murders happened in the early 1900s in Waynesboro, Georgia, or Wasboro, as people call it here. And it is a very interesting and crazy story with a lot of plot twists. It took me reading, and which we contacted some people and got the original documents, like the original documents from the early 1900s of the trial and his confession and everything. And this is like never before seen. But like reading the documents, I was so confused on like who is who, and it took forever, but it's definitely worth listening to, watching the video, because we have two videos. We have a breakdown of it, and then we have another video where you can actually see the house where he lived and the land and everything, and a little bit more about Waynesboro. And yeah, I actually didn't know about the Pea Patch murders. I'm in Leadership Waycross, and Maggie Tyre, we were at dinner together, and she was like, "Have you heard of the Pea Patch murders?" And I was like, "No, what?" And I was like, "The Pea Patch murders." And she was like, "You should do a podcast episode on it." And I was like, should I do true crime podcast episodes? And she was like, "You should, because it's so interesting."
True crime.
Yeah, she loves true crime. So I was like, you know what? That's going to be our next episode. And I started looking into it, and I was like, this is insane. But yeah, that was a really crazy episode. And we actually had the people that own the land reach out. So we're going to do another video like where we actually go on the field and see where they were buried and everything. And something else, but irrelevant.
Well, that's really interesting. I'm going to be looking forward to a follow-up. I'm a big true crime person. So I'm definitely going to be on the lookout for that. So yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. We have another true crime episode called Lying Lyles, and it's about Prohibition. The guy, his name was Harry Lyles, and he was on trial, but he was on trial for killing his wife. And the whole reason Waycross was a dry city, which means that alcohol was not allowed here, was because this guy was so drunk all the time and causing such a ruckus and eventually killed his wife that they were like, "Oh no, alcohol's done." Because of this one guy. So Connor did a podcast episode on that.
Really?
But yeah, it's
that
cool.
sounds interesting too.
Yeah.
I know the Laos name really does sound familiar, but I'm not really sure if I know it from anywhere.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting episode.
Yes.
And Connor did it really unique. He made it sound like an old radio ad from the 20s and 30s. Yeah, it's cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Okay, great. We should have brought Connor on with you.
Yeah, but Connor's super busy.
I believe it.
But I would love Connor to be on the show so that he can talk about the Pine Box Dwellers, because he's in a band and they've done tours across the country. And
haven't they did some here in Waycross?
Yeah.
At some of the newer restaurants downtown. I saw some flyers.
Yeah. They're usually in the performing in the Golden Isles or like in Atlanta and upstate Georgia, but they're awesome. Yeah, so if you could have Connor on here to talk about what he does at the library and the podcast and the band, it'd be cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, we definitely gotta get Connor on here. Okay, so we talked about Tracking the Egg. So let us know a little bit about Tracking the Vintage. Where is it located? Okay. What do you sell? How did it come about?
Okay, so Tracking the Vintage started because Connor and I needed a place to record the episodes, because we were trying to do it at the library, but even in the quiet rooms, it's not that quiet. And so, which is surprising for a library, but we needed a place to record, and I was like, well, it should be somewhere downtown, because if we're a history podcast, it should be in the center of where this town started. So we were looking around, and I found this one spot, and I was like, this place has looked closed for a while. And so I literally knocked on the store next door that was open, and I was like, do you know who owns next door? And he was like, yeah, I do. And I was like, was it for rent? He was like, yeah. I was like, what? And it was like fate. I swear it was fate. And so he showed me next door, and I was like, I'll take it. Like then and there. And I was like, Connor, we have a place to record.
Really?
Literally. But then someone told me that you could only have like boutiques downtown. Like it has to be a boutique or a restaurant in order to open. But
that's not true.
That's not true. I know it's not true now. But I was like, oh, but then that means that we need like something in the front, like a storefront. And then we could do the podcast in the back. It didn't end up being like that. We ended up doing a studio in the back for the podcast, but also an art studio. And then, anyway, my mom has been a very big vintage collector my whole life. That's all we used to do was like go thrift shopping and vintage shopping when I was a kid. And we used to go to these huge flea markets in New Jersey. And I was like, Mom, we have so much stuff. Like, why don't we sell it? Like, this is such unique items that you really can't get anywhere else. And really, they're not even from here. Like, they're from up north. And that's even cooler. So why don't we mix, like, the stuff that we can find here with the stuff that we have and create a new space? And I used to go to this place called South Street. It's a street in Philly. And it's got all these cool stores. It's like Savannah, like River Street in Savannah, but more like small shops of different stuff. Like you'll have like a ukulele shop, and then you'll have like a skateboard shop, and it's like all of these storefronts. And so I was like, we need to bring something cool downtown that's different than what's already there. So why don't we do like a vintage shop, but make it with the twist of who I am? And so I really feel like, you know, sometimes I sit there and I'm like, this is my brain. Like, I look at how everything's set up, and I'm like, this is exactly how my brain looks. If my brain was a room, it'd be this, and it's full of history and unique stuff. But anyway, to wrap it up, we have a lot of really cool items. We have vintage clothing from over 100 years, so which technically that means antique. Vintage means 20 years or older, and then antique is over 100. But we have clothing, we have records, we have 8-tracks, we have knickknacks, we have creepy dolls, we have pop culture stuff from the 90s, video games, a little bit of everything, really. And I love it. It's a really cool place to even just hang out and talk, and we can talk about history. And it's located at, if you Google it, it's 210 Tebow, but it's 208 Tebow, right behind the Bun Building and across from Rhythm and Blues, which is an awesome recording studio that you should support. And yeah, it's between Jane and Elizabeth. It's a little weird, but it's behind the Bun Building is what I say.
Yeah, that's kind of how I found it. Just walking around downtown, I was like, I think that's Harlen's shop. And then it's when I walked in and you guys were there outside spray painting the side of the wall.
Yeah, we do a lot of art stuff, and we're working on doing murals in the alley part on our side, not the Bun Building. Had to clarify that on our side. We're planning a bigger mural dedicated to Pogo if we could get some rights on it. And yeah, it's just a cool spot to take pictures.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we love that. Anyone who loves to take pictures will definitely love visiting Harlen's shop.
Yeah, and across the street at the law firm, Berchent, and I don't remember his partner's name, but they have a Coca-Cola mural of Waycross, and it's beautiful. And I always see people take pictures across the street, and it's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I love that.
Yeah.
So it seems like you take great pride in your podcast as well as in your store. So do you do any other things here in Waycross or the county?
I do. I'm also a volunteer firefighter, so I'm in the academy right now, and it is the most challenging thing I've ever done in my entire life. I mean, mentally, physically, spiritually, it is so hard. And then being one of the only women there, is intense. But I will say that the people that work at the fire station 1 in the county, they're the kindest people I've ever met. I mean, sometimes I'm on the verge of having a panic attack because it's so scary, being in smoked out rooms, and and I'm scared of heights. So imagine like you have to climb like 4 stories on a ladder, but they're like, no, Harlen, take a second. You got this. And if you don't got this, we got you. And it's a team. And I love that. And I've never been a part of something like that. And, you know, I'm small and I'm not the strongest person, but I feel like with their encouragement, I'm just like, I can do it.
Yeah.
Like, it's so fun. I love it. I think everyone should do it. No matter if you're a woman or if you're a man or if you're interested or not, I think that it'll push you to limits that you just haven't been pushed to in a very positive way. And you're helping the community, you're helping people, and you're saving lives. Like, truly, you're saving lives. So the firefighters are the ones that break down the doors to get the people that the EMT needs to save. Like, they're first responders, and they're very important. And I'm so glad to be a part of it. I haven't passed my test yet, so everyone pray for me. But it's coming up, and
you're definitely fast. You're speaking into existence.
Yes, I'm speaking it into existence. But yeah, the next year it starts in the spring. I think it should start like February or March. You can apply to be a volunteer firefighter, and it's more than just volunteer. Volunteer sounds like, you know, you're just dedicating your time, but no, it's a commitment. It's a full commitment. It's twice a week, and it's intense, but it's worth it.
Yes, and you do get paid.
Yeah, you do get paid. You do get paid. But yeah.
Yeah, so that's cool. So you're really like a jack of all trades.
Literally.
Like the firefighter thing is just kind of like, oh, I'm just a firefighter on the halftime. Like,
yeah,
it's
like
kind of like just throw it on top of everything.
Yeah, no, for real. And college wasn't for me. I went like 3 times, and it wasn't for me.
Really?
Yeah, literally.
You're like literally so smart. Like, you like to read everything.
Yeah.
Like, that's literally college in a nutshell.
I know. But it just wasn't for me, and I'm very proud of people that could do college, but I like to advocate for people that don't want to go to college. And it's okay if you don't, because everyone has a different life path. But if you do want to do like first responding, it is a very well needed department, and you're literally changing lives. It's not an easy task, but it is worth it. And I wish I knew about it when I was younger. I think if I knew about it when I was 18, I probably would be a firefighter now. Yeah. I don't know if I would have had the discipline to continue the way that I am now, but just know that if college isn't for you, it's okay. Try it though. I recommend trying it, because I did try it. But I found that life led me other places, and I'm very thankful. But also, when I graduated, the pandemic started. Mm-hmm. So it was like a whole year of the pandemic, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. And once I came out of it, I tried, and it just didn't work out that way.
And I can actually understand that, because the pandemic hit literally, I want to say, my second semester of my freshman year of college. And going back on campus after the pandemic was so scary, because everyone didn't know what COVID was doing, what it was going to do. And it just wasn't the same. Like, kind of took away from the college experience. You know, you go into college and everybody wants that full experience. Granted, I'll just go ahead and say it. Everybody wants to go to the party. Yeah. Everybody wants to experience Greek life. Everybody wants to do all that. But the pandemic kind of put it on hold to where it was like, you go to your dorm and you go to class and you go back. And then it's just a repeating. You're just like, I could have stayed at home and got a job. But if you push through the pandemic, I'm with you.
No, like that pandemic turned everyone upside down.
It did.
It pushed me mentally in places I never thought I could go. And I was working. I was working at Lowe's, surprisingly enough.
I worked through the pandemic too. I was working at a nurse home. That's how I got COVID.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. And then that's when I decided I did not want to be in the medical field no more. I was like, I got to risk my life every day.
Yeah. It's a commitment.
And you know how they got us? Offer you more money.
Yeah.
Literally, I was ready to work the COVID rooms. It was more money.
Yeah.
And then I got COVID. I was thinking, I can't get COVID. It was like halfway through the pandemic by then.
No.
So I can't get COVID. Next thing you know, I'm walking down the hallway. I asked one of my coworkers, and I'm just like, are you cold? Like, I whispered it to her because, that was when COVID was really bad. So you didn't want anybody to know if you had COVID because they were going to treat you like, a monster or something.
Yeah.
But I'll be walking out, and I whispered to one of my coworkers that was like really cool, like really goofy, which is crazy because I ended up starting to work with her at a part-time job recently. But I was like, is it cold in here? She was like, she patted my back. She was like, no, it's really hot. Just go ahead and go home. Just go ahead and go home.
Just like that.
Yeah. Wow. Literally. I went out to the car and I was just like, guess it's over with.
But it's interesting because we need to go on those paths to take us where we are today.
That's true.
Like, I actually got injured at Lowe's. I tore my shoulder blade. Don't know how that happened, but it did.
I was just about to say, how did that happen?
I don't know. And I was manager at the time, and this was in Philadelphia. I was a traveling employee, so I worked overnights, and then I worked day shift sometimes. And I would travel through different stores doing MST, which is like building the stuff. Mm-hmm. So I did a lot of construction. Okay, I understand now. Yeah, and so anyway, I was working there for a year, and I was like, oh, well, I'm manager, like, no. I tore my shoulder blade, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. And then I moved here, like 3 months later. Really? Yeah, like the craziest thing. It's literally insane. But you need to go through things like that in order to get to where you are today. And that's what happened. Wow, that's I'm really great. Happy. And honestly, I feel like that's like a great kind of like little nugget to stick on before we end the podcast. Yeah. I just feel like that I literally worked in every single field going throughout college, just trying to make, some extra money and to put some extra money in my pockets while going through college, because everybody knows about the college struggle if you've been there. Yeah. That's really like the thing that makes a lot of people not want to do it anymore, because they're like, I could be at home making money instead of here working hard, So that support, if you have kids that are in college, please support them throughout the whole 4 years or however long it takes them to get through college. Because when you have that support system, it just makes it 10 times easier. Yeah. But I'll say that I didn't have the support system. It's not to say that I didn't try to go to college. So after I graduated, I got into NYU, and I got into NYU for art. And that's like a 30% acceptance rate school. And it was like my top school ever. That's amazing. Yeah. And I was like mind blown because the application process was so difficult. And I got into all the schools I applied to. I got into SCAD. I got into all these art schools, and I was going to go for photography. And pandemic hit, and so I deferred my acceptance because I also couldn't afford it. NYU is $90,000 a year. I was just about to say it probably was the money. Literally. And then you're living in New York City. So I deferred, which means like I say instead of graduating in 2024, I'll graduate in 2025. Mm-hmm. So I would start a year later. And then everything changed. The pandemic hit, and I was like, I don't know if I can afford to go to school. I'm not rich. My mom is not even... This goes back into who I am, but my mom isn't even from America. She's an immigrant from Puerto Rico. And so I already don't have this huge financial backing behind me. I don't know how I'm going to be able to go to school and afford it. And then after that, am I going to have a career that's going to be able to sustain paying my student loans off? And by the time I graduated, they said, you're going to have $500,000 in debt going to NYU. Literally. And NYU does not give scholarships. And I was just about to say, elite school. Offer any scholarships? No, it's an elite school. All the other schools gave me scholarships. SCAD paid for over half of my tuition, but I was so dead set. I was like, if I'm gonna make it, I need to go to NYU. I don't know what it was, but life changed, and I was like, maybe it's not for me. So it's not to say that I didn't try, or that like, life just leads you other places, and I believe that God has my best interest in mind. And so if it wasn't for me, it wasn't for me. But look, now I'm here and I can contribute to a community that I didn't even know existed. People ask me all the time, like, how I found Waycross, and I found Waycross literally on Zillow.
Really?
Like, I was looking for a house, and I was like, I want to live close to the beach, but I don't want to live at the beach, and I want to live in the South because I want something new, and I was tired of Philly. And I literally was looking at houses, and I found a house here, a historic house. And my brother and I and my mom, we wanted a historic house to fix and to make it our own. We've always wanted that. And so we found a house, great price, boom, moved here. Like nothing.
Yeah.
We were like, if we could get through the pandemic, and even though it was still technically the pandemic, we were like, let's do it. And so I just restarted my life.
Wow.
Yeah, this is the craziest thing.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but
that's inspiring.
Yeah, it's not in our hands sometimes, Sometimes something else is pushing us in places we're supposed to go. Because have I ever thought that I would be in Waycross, Georgia? No, but I'm so blessed to be here.
You're here, you're thriving,
yeah.
You're blessed. And that's just a great story for someone who's watching it. Maybe someone who was like in the same shoes that you were in a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Minus the pandemic part, but just like their mindset. Maybe they're kind of lost right now and they're just feeling like, I don't really know where I'm going. I don't really know what I'm doing with my life, but I'm just going to go with the flow and just go wherever it takes me. Sometimes that's just how you have to look at it to keep yourself sane, especially. Because when you're young, it's like you want to get everything done and you want to be successful. You want to do everything at such this quick pace. And sometimes you just got to slow down, breathe, and just let life drift you like a wave.
Yeah, you just, the one thing I will say is you need discipline. Like, no matter what, you need discipline. If you're not going to go to school, then you have to work 3 times as hard to become successful, if not more than that. Because though 4 years will pass, but at the end of 4 years, they're going to have a degree and you're not. So what are you going to do within these 4 years to amount to something like that? So I spent all of these years building up a career for myself, skills that I didn't have before, and now I'm able to be in places that the doors wouldn't have been open if I didn't work as hard to be there. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, yeah. If college isn't for you, you just got to find something else, but you got to work really good at it. Yeah.
And you need a network.
You need a network. This is how we're friends.
Yes. Well, this has been a great podcast, by the way. This has helped me so much.
Oh, that's so sweet.
I feel like that younger kids, maybe even adults that are going to watch this podcast are really going to be inspired.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like you're really going to help someone once this podcast airs.
Yeah. Wait, I have one more thing to say.
Okay, great.
About the podcast, not this one, but my podcast.
Your podcast.
It is so worth paying attention to. If you're a Waycross native or you just moved here, it's important to know the stories of the community so that you care more. Because I think even with me growing up in Philly, like, I stopped caring about where I came from. I love Philadelphia now that I'm not there, but you're here in Waycross now. Care more about the stories that are here, the people that are here. And even if you've known them your whole life, that doesn't mean that they're not important and that their voice doesn't matter. Like, this is your history. It's not even my history. I just care. But this is your history and you should talk about it. This is your family's lineage that you should talk about. Good, the bad, the ugly, all of it, because it's important. But I'm glad that Tatiana is here. She's a huge asset to the community. Yeah, I'm going to pipe you up for a second.
That was crazy.
No, and you better put this in the thing. She is important to the community. She is a young, very strong, independent woman that deserves to be here and have a platform like this and to be able to talk to new people and allow your voice to be heard. There's a reason she's here, and I'm so glad that you're here because it's another young person that has a voice. And it's so hard because Waycross is not young people with voices. And I'm just thankful that she's able to have a platform and a podcast to be able to talk to new people and other people and older people and people that she wouldn't have been in a room with and allow them to share their stories and your story because you matter. So, to Tatiana.
Thank you so much, Harlen.
Yeah, you better put that in there.
Please cut that out. But I'm being so serious. Thank you so much for being a guest on our podcast. We've had other young people, but I think you maybe be like the second or third young adult,
maybe.
So it just brings a fresher air, you know.
Yeah.
It just brings a fresh air. You know, when we have older people, they kind of talk about their past and what they've already done, and they're kind of already established. But having like the younger people,
like we're growing up.
Yeah, like
we're not there yet.
Inspire others, like, you know, get on my train. Come on, just come and help us.
Yeah.
So I'm just so happy that you're.
I meant it though. Do you want to do an outro, because that wasn't a good outro?
Yeah.
But we can do. Thank you guys for watching.
Okay, I'll do it first.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, Harlen, for being our guest on today's podcast.
Okay, restart.
Okay. Oh my gosh. All right. Thank you so much, Harlen, for being a guest on today's podcast.
Thank you. And bye-bye.
That's not gonna work.
That better be on it.
It's not.
Oh, why can't it be funny?
Patrick.
I'm leaving it all in.
Oh my God.
Period.
That's hilarious.
No, it would be funny.
It would be funny.
It would show our personalities more.
It will.
That's what I realized about the podcast. Like my podcast, it doesn't have to be boring. Like history doesn't have to be boring.
It doesn't.
Like it can actually be really fun.
It's easy for history to be boring.
Yeah. No, we try to make it as interesting as possible.
You guys did. True crime already interests me, but the Pea Patch, when I saw the Pea Patch murders pop up, I was like, you know what's crazy? I've seen that house before, and I knew something happened in there.
Yeah, it's actually like insane. You listen to it? Because it's crazy.
I like it.
I didn't understand who the wives were. Like, for the longest time. I didn't know if it was this one or this one and this one. No, he took his mistress up and pretended that it was his wife. And then his wife came up, and she was there, and they said that the wife was the cousin, and then murdered the actual wife, and then the mistress actually did it, and it wasn't him, but he took the fall. Even though he said in his confession, I didn't do it. It was her, but she was pretty and young, so she got away with it.
It was crazy.
It's the craziest. And then he was executed. So I was like, what?
You just died.
Literally. But yeah.
That's actually like Fatal Attraction. In a way. I used to watch that show all the time. We can do an outro.
Yeah, we can do one real quick. Okay. I won't laugh.
You can
But
laugh.
now you're going to laugh.
I am going to laugh. I'm going to laugh. Okay. Thank you so much, Harlen, for being a guest on today's podcast.
And thank you for having me here and being a part of the community.
Yes, thank you. So with that being said, thank you all for tuning in to WCC, Waycross Community Connect, where we are igniting conversations and inspiring connections. Now we can talk about true crime.